Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you'll always know when the next tale drops. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming, and trust me, what's next is going to keep you hooked. The night everything changed. It was just past 2 in the morning, and sleep felt like a distant luxury I couldn't touch. The house lay in perfect silence, broken only by the faint hum of the furnace and the steady, methodical tick of the clock in the living room. Beside me, my husband, Aaron, was snoring softly, a deep, unbothered rhythm that only made my restlessness sharper. At 26 weeks pregnant with twins, lying still for more than 10 minutes had become impossible. Every time I shifted, a jolt of pain ran up my lower back, and the babies inside me seemed determined to practice an entire gymnastics routine. I eased myself upright, one hand on my belly, feeling the uneven pushes and kicks. "It's okay, little ones," I whispered into the darkness. "Mommy's just tired." There was no answer, of course, just more shifting, a tiny heel pressing against my ribs. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, wincing as my swollen ankles took my weight. Walking felt like hauling around 2 sandbags strapped to my middle. In the kitchen, I filled the kettle, my movements slow and deliberate. I made a cup of chamomile tea and lowered myself into one of the dining chairs. Outside the window, the streets of Cedar Falls were coated in frost, the lamplight reflecting off icy pavement. The world out there was still and quiet, but inside my head, thoughts crowded in like restless birds. I thought about Aaron, how once, when I'd told him I was pregnant, he'd looked like the happiest man alive. He'd wanted a child for years, saying, "We need someone to carry on the Grant name. Someone who'll look up to me." Back then I thought it was sweet, romantic even. But after the ultrasound revealed not 1 heartbeat, but 2, his joy dimmed almost overnight. The affectionate belly kisses stopped. The pet names faded. In their place came little jabs and mocking nicknames. He'd pinch at my hips and smirk. "Careful, you're going to roll away from me." Or watch me waddle across the room and say, "Penguin suits you." At first I forced myself to laugh along. Later I just smiled weakly, pretending it didn't sting. Aaron still expected the house to be spotless. His dinners hot, his shirts pressed. When I said I was exhausted, he'd shrug. "You're pregnant, not dying. Every woman goes through it. Stop acting like it's some miracle." Sometimes I'd cry quietly in the bathroom, staring at my reflection and wondering how we'd gotten here. I told myself it would change once the babies arrived, that he'd see them and fall back in love with me, with us. But deep down, a knot of fear was forming. What if he never did? What if he just walked away? I hadn't always been this tired or afraid. There was a time when life felt open and bright, filled with choices. I grew up an only child in a quiet household. My father was a history professor who loved old books and quiet evenings. My mother, a meticulous accountant, balanced everything: the checkbook, the pantry, the mood of the house. They never yelled, never fought in front of me. Conflicts were settled over tea, not raised voices. By 19 I lost them both. My father to a sudden stroke, my mother to an aggressive cancer just months later. I sold our family home to pay for medical bills and moved into a university dorm with little more than a scholarship and a suitcase. To cover expenses, I started tutoring English online. That's how I met Aaron. He was 28, a warehouse manager who needed to polish his English for overseas clients. Confident, charming, and quick to smile. He paid more than I asked for my lessons. "You're worth it, Emma. You're helping me more than you know." Our tutoring sessions became conversations. Our conversations became dinners. He told me he admired my strength after losing my parents, and I believed him. 6 months later, he asked me to move in. A year after that, we had a quiet courthouse wedding with just his mother, Marion, joining us for dinner afterward. I told myself love mattered more than big celebrations. In the beginning, marriage felt stable. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, Aaron began to shape my world into something smaller. He questioned why I still tutored, why I met friends, You've got me now. Isn't that enough? I stopped tutoring. I stopped seeing friends. And eventually, my world shrank to the size of our apartment, keeping it perfect for him. When I showed Aaron the positive pregnancy test, his joy returned in full force. For a moment I thought things might turn around. But when the twins were revealed at the ultrasound, I watched his smile falter. He went silent on the ride home, and from then on, every small thing I did seemed to annoy him. And then came the day that would change everything. It was late December, just before New Year's. I was restless, wanting the apartment to look nice before the babies arrived. Aaron refused to help, saying, "I've worked all week, Emma. You can handle it." So I tried. Balancing awkwardly on a stool to clean a window, I lost my footing and hit the tile hard. A rush of warmth spread between my legs. My water had broken. Panic set in. I called Aaron voicemail. Again. Nothing. Desperate, I scrolled my phone but accidentally dialed Daniel Blake, Aaron's boss. He didn't hesitate. Within minutes, he was at my door, hospital bag in hand, helping me to the car. The delivery was early, frantic, and exhausting. Hours later, I held 2 tiny boys before they were taken to the NICU. Aaron never came. Daniel waited in the hallway the entire time. 3 days later, Daniel drove us home. Aaron's truck was gone. Inside, half the apartment was empty. His clothes, his electronics, even his watch, all gone. On the counter, a single note. "I'm done. Don't try to find me. We're getting a divorce. Aaron." I collapsed into a chair, clutching one of the baby carriers, tears streaming silently. Daniel didn't try to fill the silence with empty comfort. Instead, he crouched beside me and said quietly, "You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out." A week later, just past midnight, my phone rang. Aaron's name glowed on the screen. I almost didn't answer. When I did, his voice was slurred and cruel. "So, you moved on with Blake already? That was your plan? Get knocked up and cozy up to my boss?" He accused. He laughed. And then he threatened, telling me he had plans to sabotage Daniel's company, and that I had a month to leave the apartment before he had me evicted. The moment he hung up, I called Daniel and told him everything. His tone turned sharp, controlled. "Thank you for telling me. I'll take care of it. He won't get away with this." And for the first time since Aaron left, I felt the smallest ember of safety flicker back to life. What I didn't know then was that this was only the beginning, and that Aaron's downfall was going to be far uglier than I imagined. All right, let's carry this forward into the second arc, keeping the same style, depth, and emotional tension while pushing the stakes higher. This will take Emma from that first fragile flicker of safety into the confrontation, fallout, and the slow rebuilding of her life. The morning after Aaron's drunken call, Daniel showed up at my apartment with 2 coffees, a stack of folders, and a look that told me he'd been up all night. He didn't waste time with small talk. "Emma, what Aaron said last night wasn't just bragging. We've confirmed he's been accessing internal files he had no right to. Serious. Theft of proprietary information." I felt my chest tighten. "What does that mean? For him? For you?" Daniel's jaw was set, but his voice stayed calm. "For him, it means the police might be involved. For me, it means I need to make sure my company is secure, and that you and the twins aren't dragged into the mess he's created." The weight of it all hit me like a slow-moving wave. Aaron wasn't just gone. He was actively trying to burn everything down on his way out. Over the next few days, the apartment became a revolving door of quiet visits from Daniel's legal team and security consultants. They spoke in clipped phrases, discussing evidence chains and digital footprints, while I sat on the couch, the twins in my arms, feeling like I was watching a crime drama from inside the TV screen. One evening, after the twins were finally asleep, Daniel stayed behind. We sat in the dim light of the kitchen. "You know," he said carefully, "this isn't your responsibility. You didn't cause this." "I know," I answered automatically, though part of me didn't believe it. "But I married him. I let him." I stopped swallowing hard. "I let him make me smaller. I didn't even see it happening until I couldn't move. Daniel studied me for a long moment. His gaze steady but not invasive. Then this is where it stops. You're not going to carry his mistakes, Emma. Not on my watch. There was something in the way he said it, not pity but conviction, that made me realize I'd been holding my breath for weeks. By mid-January, Aaron's plans had fully unraveled. Daniel's security team traced the stolen files to an email account linked directly to Aaron. He'd been sloppy, overconfident. The police became involved. A detective visited me one afternoon, asking for permission to search any electronics Aaron might have left behind. There wasn't much, just an old tablet and a broken laptop, but both were taken as evidence. I thought maybe Aaron would call, that he'd scream at me, accuse me of betrayal. But there was nothing. No calls, no text, not even a message through someone else. It was like he'd vanished completely, except for the trail of damage he left behind. Then one rainy Tuesday, Marion, his mother, showed up at my door. She didn't ask to come in. She just stepped past me like she still had the right. She looked around the apartment, her eyes lingering on the twins sleeping in their bassinets. I heard about this situation, she said, her voice tight. Aaron says you're trying to ruin his life. I nearly laughed. He ruined his own life. Mine. He left without seeing his sons, Marion. He hasn't so much as asked how they are. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You need to think about what's best for them. Public scandal, isn't it? If you cooperate, maybe this won't make the papers. It was like watching the same old pattern, someone minimizing his actions and shifting the blame. I'm not covering for him, I said firmly. Not this time. Her expression cooled completely. Then you're as selfish as he says. She left without another word. I stood there in the quiet, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from the realization that I wasn't the same person I'd been a month ago. In February, Aaron was arrested. The charges were serious enough that bail was set high, and from what I heard through a mutual acquaintance, he didn't have the money to post it. His big plans had collapsed into a cramped holding cell and a court date he couldn't charm his way out of. The news didn't bring joy. It didn't even bring relief. Just ended something. A door closing for good. Life didn't instantly get easier. The twins woke at all hours. Bills piled up. Some days I felt like I was barely keeping my head above water. But Daniel kept showing up, with groceries, with formula, sometimes just with company so I could take a shower without rushing. One night, as I fed one twin and he burped the other, he said quietly, I know you don't owe me anything, Emma. But you should know. I'm not helping you out of obligation. I'm helping because I want to. I met his eyes and realized there was a steadiness there I hadn't seen in years. Not the intense, controlling attention Aaron had given me in the beginning, but something warmer, safer. For the first time in a long while, I believed there might be a future I could build, not just for me but for my boys. One without fear. All right, let's keep going from where we left off, deepening the tension and peeling back the layers of what's really happening. It wasn't until late that Sunday night that the first crack in her polished story appeared. Lucas had been quietly folding laundry in the bedroom when Sarah's phone, left face down on the dresser, buzzed twice. Normally, he wouldn't have touched it. Trust had never been in question before, but something about the rapid double vibration and the name flashing on the screen froze him mid-fold. Eric. Hotel room 512. No last name. No emoji. Just a breadcrumb that felt heavy enough to sink his chest. He didn't open the message immediately. Instead, he stood there, shirt in hand, trying to process the two facts colliding in his mind. Sarah had told him she'd been in Chicago that weekend for a team strategy summit, and Eric was supposedly a married coworker who lived in Boston. So why was she getting a hotel room number from him on a Sunday night? Lucas put the shirt down, picked up the phone and scrolled. The further he went back, the more his stomach twisted. Playful teasing about late nights, inside jokes about keeping it quiet, and a photo of Sarah's legs in what was clearly not their bedroom. His hands felt cold. When he heard the garage door open, Lucas locked the screen and set it exactly where it had been. By the time Sarah stepped into the bedroom, wearing her softest smile and a hotel-branded sweatshirt, he was already back at the laundry, folding with mechanical precision. She kissed him lightly on the cheek, her voice casual. "Miss me?" Lucas didn't answer. Not yet. Because whatever was coming next, he wanted her to walk right into it. That's all for tonight. But the shadows hold more stories than you can imagine. Subscribe, tap the bell, and stay with us, because the next tale might just keep you awake long after the lights go out.